At 0319 local time, on an unusually cold October night in Ukraine, a faint hum drifted across a patch of Ukrainian farmland. No one on the ground heard it. The engines were small, buried, and tuned to run just above idle. 10 Ukrainian long-range drones lifted off one after another, climbing to barely 150 meters before settling into formation. Their wings flashed momentarily in the moonlight, then vanished into the dark, like they had been swallowed whole by the sky. Nothing about the takeoff gave away what they were carrying or where they were headed. 90 kilometers away, operators watched green telemetry bars crawl across their screens. Every drone checked in, battery temperature stable, control surfaces responsive, barometric altimeters synced, terrain reference maps loaded. Their satellite receivers stayed dormant. Tonight's flight path had been memorized by the onboard processors, each one carrying its route like a locked briefcase. The mission name remained intentionally dull in the logs. Just a 4-digit code, no hint that its target was one of the most protected fuel depots in Western Russia. By 0341 local time, the drones descended to 60 meters, matching the curve of a riverbank. Moist air clung to their wings, and turbulence tapped lightly against their frames. Each drone adjusted its pitch every 0.2 of a second, comparing the rising terrain with its internal model. Only the operators knew what was happening. The drones themselves simply followed math. They glided through pockets of fog so dense that infrared cameras returned nothing but bright noise. Still, the swarm advanced. For the first hour, nothing unusual appeared on Russian radar grids. Their scopes showed the same clutter as always. Civilian flights at cruising altitude, a few cargo aircraft, scattered patrols, the steady pulse of ground-based systems. Low, slow, and quiet objects traditionally slipped beneath attention. The drones were practically surfing the Earth's curvature, invisible unless someone happened to be staring at exactly the right sector at exactly the right moment. At 0420 local time, the first sign of complication arrived. Drone 7's acoustic sensor caught the distinct chop of rotor blades far in the distance. The sound was faint, barely above background, but the software identified it. A Russian helicopter engine, older model, likely on routine patrol. The drones continued, but the operator marked the threat on the shared map. If the helicopter drifted south by even 1 kilometer, its crew might spot the reflections of wings against the river. The swarm held its line, engines throttled down to remain beneath the sound floor. 48 minutes later, the Russian helicopter unexpectedly banked east, following a river bend the drones had just passed. Static crackled briefly in the operator's headsets as the system updated the risk level. A few meters of altitude change could decide if tonight unfolded cleanly or if this routine patrol stumbled into the middle of something far larger. Drone 3's altitude fluctuated by half a meter as the computer dampened every bump. Had a human been flying at this altitude, they would have needed nerves made of steel cable. The drones pressed on, their internal clocks ticking toward the most dangerous segment, the border crossing. At 0515, 9 drones dipped to 50 meters, while Drone 1 climbed to 80, acting as a sacrificial reference beacon. It emitted a short burst of encrypted telemetry intended only for Ukrainian sensors. To Russian systems, it appeared as a flicker, possibly a bird, possibly interference, possibly nothing. Curiosity gaps like these had become normal on their scopes. Operators on the Russian side had learned not to overreact to every speck. Minutes later, the swarm crossed into Russian airspace. No alarms went off. No intercept orders were issued. Nothing at the border behaved differently than normal. That was the unsettling beauty of flying drones this low. They simply slipped under the world's notice. The operators quietly marked the crossing time and adjusted the expected arrival at the oil depot, 0631. From here on, every kilometer mattered and every error grew teeth. The Russian oil depot itself was living its own uneventful dawn. Workers were rotating shifts, drivers were lining up tanker trucks, and supervisors were checking temperature gauges on storage tanks. A mist hung over the facility, and floodlights hummed faintly. Nobody there knew that dozens of sensors and cameras hundreds of kilometers away were studying them like a surgeon, preparing for an operation, noting fuel flow rates, heat signatures, and the positions of guard vehicles parked along access roads. As the drones approached the final stretch, their guidance routines updated to high-precision mode. Drone 4 slowed by 2 kilometers per hour to maintain spacing, while Drone 8 executed a programmed microclimb to clear an unexpected rise in terrain. At 60 meters away, even a power line could end the mission. To minimize risk, each drone scanned ahead in infrared, comparing heat gradients along the ground. A farmhouse chimney, a small generator, even a herd of animals could create false positives, so the computers filtered out anything that didn't match metallic profiles or engineered structures. Finally, at 0627, Drone 2 detected the first hint of the oil depot's thermal signature, not the tanks themselves. Those were still kilometers away, but the faint warmth of auxiliary buildings. Firefighting pumps, backup generators, rail switching equipment, all glowing against the cold ground. The drone's camera stitched a composite image and transmitted it back to the operators, who confirmed alignment. Everything was on track. The operators still said nothing. Conversations were unnecessary now. The drones had begun entering their terminal logic phase. Each machine checked wind direction, corrected for drift, measured target distance, and quietly prepared its warhead. The sequence would take minutes. The operators were not revealing the attack yet, not even to themselves. They watched and they waited. At 0629, the situation changed. Drone 9 picked up an unexpected radar sweep, broad, shallow, and not part of the routine pattern. It came from the north, too close to ignore. Russian air defense crews had apparently begun scanning aggressively, possibly due to unrelated activity, or possibly because someone, somewhere, had reported a suspicious sound. The sweep repeated. This time, 2 drones recorded it. Something was waking up. Drone 5's flight computer calculated that the radar would intersect its path in 1 minute and 42 seconds. That wasn't enough time to divert without compromising the formation. Instead, the swarm tightened spacing, hoping that ground clutter and low altitude would continue masking their presence. The operators leaned closer to their screens. The mission was reaching the point where nothing could be undone. From the north, the faint echo of an aircraft engine rolled across Drone 1's microphones at 0630. This engine was deeper, heavier, unmistakable. Russian helicopter, newer than the patrol helicopter earlier. Faster. If it continued on its present course, it would cross directly into the drone's path. Only 2 minutes remained before the drones reached strike distance, but the operators still did not reveal the action unfolding. Their voices remained calm, their hands steady. Only the small flashes on their screens betrayed the tension. Altitude adjustments, collision warnings, terrain alerts, all firing in the background as the swarm threaded the last stretch of its journey. What happened next would determine whether the mission became a clean strike or a disaster written into the morning reports of both countries. At 0630, Drone 1's sensors caught the sudden rise of a Russian attack helicopter cresting over the tree line to the north. Twin engines glowed white in infrared, rotor wash scattering mist below it. The drone's processor ran quick geometry, closing speed far too high, altitude too favorable for the helicopter, and time to intercept dropping under 2 minutes. Operators saw the warning flash but made no sound. The swarm continued, hugging terrain so tightly that even a small climb risked radar exposure. The helicopter crew had been rerouted after a vague radar anomaly appeared near the depot. They expected to find nothing more than a stray weather return, but as they descended toward the valley, the gunner started sweeping the ground with his narrow optical sight. Fog and morning haze made everything look like smudged charcoal. He shifted in his seat, tightening his grip, annoyed at being sent to investigate ghosts. Meanwhile, the drones crept beneath him like silent currents of air. Drone 3 detected the distinct chop of rotor blades growing louder. The sound cone sharpened, giving away distance and bearing. Without hesitation, the drone's logic activated micro-evasion, subtle zigzags, slight altitude dips, and unpredictable side slips. These tiny moves mattered at such low height, they disrupted any smooth aiming solution the helicopter might attempt. Even a single meter of drift would throw off the gunner, whose turret lagged behind every sudden correction. At the depot itself, a lone conscript on break first noticed the unnatural mix of buzzing engines and approaching helicopter noise. He hesitated, torn between ignoring it or reporting it. Eventually, he spoke into his radio, sending a reluctant warning up the chain. Drone 6 drove directly into the rail loading zone, turning tanker trucks into burning husks. Their ruptured compartments fed the inferno with astonishing speed. Heat shimmered violently, warping steel structures around the impact points. Drone 7 reached the main tank field. It climbed sharply, hung for a moment at its apex, then pitched downward in a perfect dive. The warhead punched into the upper third of a large storage tank. A geyser of flaming fuel erupted skyward. Drone 8, flying erratically from earlier damage, crashed near the base of an adjacent tank. The combined structural failures ignited a rolling blast wave that barreled across the field, rupturing additional tanks like overfilled cans. The final drone, Drone 9, hit the central control building, obliterating the depot's monitoring systems. With pumps destroyed, valves shattered, suppression offline, and tank integrity collapsing, the entire facility entered uncontrolled failure.